Are we live?
Yes, we are live now.
Okay. Hi, Zavher. Welcome to this session.
Thank you for having me, Ina.
Yeah. Welcome to the Caregiver Saathi's session on, as you know, we are doing multiple sessions and conversations with erstwhile caregivers and, caregivers who, the current caregivers. So, as I understand from our previous conversation, you have been perpetually been a caregiver since you turned 24, if
That's right.
and it's been a long journey for you.
That's right.
So, just share something about yourself.
I'm Zavher, and I was born and brought up in Jamshedpur, the beautiful town of Jamshedpur. And I left Jamshedpur after I finished my high school, and I came to Mumbai. I studied my hotel management at the Cadell Road Catering College, and then I worked as a chef with the
Mm.
Taj Group of Hotels for 11 years at the Taj Mahal Palace in Mumbai.
Okay.
And then I found the man whom I fell in love with there, who was also a chef, and we
All
got married. And then, then we moved to Dubai, and then to Maldives,
right.
and then we were in Delhi for several years before we moved back to Mumbai. And I've been here for nearly 5 years now.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's
That's my journey.
journey as an individual and as a caregiver. When did you really get into a caregiving mode? Uh,
So, Ina, it was quite early on in life. As I said, I was about maybe touching 24 or so.
yeah.
And my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer at that time. And actually, maybe I was even younger, I should say, because it may have been nearly a year that it took to come to this diagnosis due to a series of events where she really was misdiagnosed. People said that she was gaining weight. She
Mhm.
was having some skin issues, so she was put on steroids. So some doctors said that she was bloating because of the steroids,
Mhm.
and that was putting pressure on her leg, on some nerve, and maybe that is why she was getting pain in her legs.
Mhm.
Literally, flakes of skin used to fall, and we just didn't know what was happening to her.
Mhm.
And then, luckily, she was referred to Mumbai, where a very dear doctor friend of ours came and examined her. And
Mhm.
while he was examining her, he put his hand on her abdomen and said, "She's full of ascites. She's full of fluid. There's nothing wrong with her skin. There's something very wrong with her." And that's when we got to know that my mama had already
Mhm.
very, very advanced stage of ovarian cancer.
Okay.
It came like I can't describe that moment. I remember my father collecting that. At that time, I think there was no MRI, it was a CT report.
Mhm.
And he came to the guest house where we were living at Worli Seaface. And he was looking out at the expanse and he just started weeping.
Okay.
And you see, my mother hugged him and she said, "We will get through it." And I just stood by and thought, I mean,
Mhm.
what's happening? So it
Mhm.
was from there that my caregiving journey started. And I was very fortunate that my boss was very, very kind and he gave me time off for nearly 6 months at a time. I would go away to Jamshedpur and spend time with her and
Mhm.
then come back when she was better and then go back. And then eventually the last time I went was when she passed. So it
So,
started like that.
so how long was this caregiving journey of yours with your mother? How
Uh,
long did it last?
because she got very good and aggressive treatment,
Mhm.
it went on for close to 5 years, in
Okay.
which she had two cycles, twice she had these long 6 or 7 month cycles of chemotherapy. She would
Oh.
have a surgery and then she would go in for a second look surgery. And then after the chemo, and then they would say that, okay, now she's cancer free. And
Mhm.
we would come back, she would come back and everybody would be so joyous. But
Mhm.
in a few months, it
Mhm.
was back again. But she was a very, very brave lady, I should say. And I think that the caregiving part for me at that time was difficult because we didn't know how to keep her really very comfortable, Ina. They would administer cisplatinum to her at that time, which was a very toxic chemotherapeutic drug. So toxic that my mama could not write after that. She could never lie down. Her legs used to literally just fly. So she
Mm,
would sit on a chair and
mm,
hold her thighs down with her elbows.
mm,
And that's how she spent most of her time. But she was a very determined woman. She would do copywriting and try to, get back on track. So
mm,
it was a very hard journey to
mm,
see her suffering so much. You see, also
mm.
pain medication was not much heard of at that time.
Okay.
So yeah, this went on till she passed in 1995.
Mm. So when you used to go back from Mumbai, that's what I understand, for 6 months, you would
Yes,
be back in your
hometown.
hometown. What exactly what is the kind of role did you take on, in terms of as a caregiver, what were you doing?
Um, well, I should say that I was very fortunate that people shared this journey with me. I was
Okay.
very lucky. My sister was in America, but she was constantly with us all the time. At that time, when my mother passed, she was just carrying her first child. And I had a very dear mommy, my aunt.
Mhm.
I have, and she and my mama, my mother's brother, every single vacation, she was a principal of a college in Mumbai. Every single vacation she got, she would come to Jamshedpur and spend that chunk of time with my mother and father looking after them. So I would go at a different time. And when I went there, I had to, not only look after her, but I had to take over quite a bit of the running of her house.
Mhm.
My mother was the kind who ran everything. My father just brought the money. She invested, she changed the plug points. She was the electrician, she was the plumber, she was the investor, she was the gardener, she was everything.
Okay.
So it was very, but she taught us. She taught us slowly by slowly. She taught us, and to keep her happy, to keep her comfortable. We would sit together. We would hold hands. We would talk. I think
Mhm.
that was the way I spent most of my time with her, except for the last part, Ina, when the legs kind of gave way and she had water dripping through her legs, and we would put towels under her feet to try and soak it up. It was a very, very hard time emotionally, and I think I turned a lot to spirituality in some way at that time. It helped me. I would go to my school chapel. I was studying in a convent school, and
Mhm.
every day I would go and sit in the chapel and I would just pray, and
Mhm.
that gave me a lot of strength.
Okay. So in a way, you were also, you can say, a parent to your parents during that time, both to
Yes,
your
that's right.
father and to your mother.
Yes, because my father was it was very hard for him.
He was kind of devastated, and what I
He
understand, he was
was
very, very devoted to your mother.
extremely, extremely devoted to my mother.
So
Yes.
it took a good 5 years of good 5 years of caregiving to your mother.
Yes, it did. And it was a very big, it changed me.
Mm,
I
mm.
think I had my first episode of major depression and
Okay,
anxiety
I see.
at that time, maybe in 94. And it was very hard for me at that time, even though I had so much help and support and love around me. It was very
So,
hard to see her suffer.
okay. And was this the depression that you went into? Was it before, along with while your caregiving journey had begun during that, or
Yes.
was it later? It was like after your mother's demise that you felt
No,
the.
it was before. I think it was maybe the last year or two before she passed when things were getting difficult at
Mm,
home.
okay. So, and you were able to identify that this is, you were slipping into depression, and it was clinically kind of ascertained. And did you seek any help on it?
I sought help after she passed.
Okay. So
I
you
don't think I had the bandwidth at that time.
okay. So later on. So
Yes.
how long did it take for you to come out of your depressive state?
Well, I've journeyed with it for quite a while, Lena.
Okay.
because soon after my mother passed, it was my dad who got multiple myeloma, which
All
is
right.
cancer of the bone marrow. So that caregiving journey more or less started within 2 years of her passing away.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been a bit of a continuous ride for
For you,
some time.
yeah, there's been challenges. So now, what is your, with your, I'm sure, because that's what I've understood, that your caregiving has not been just with your parents, but it kind of has continued. It's been on a continuum that you've been taking, been in that role,
That's
uh,
right.
many, many years now.
Yes.
And each would have been a different experience for you and a different learning, a different takeaway for you.
Yes.
So, what was your main takeaway from your mother's difficult journey?
I think with her, the main takeaway was how how important it is for a woman to voice and to really make known what her problems are and be very like she never wanted my dad to worry, so she would lie down when he went to work and she would sit up when he came back. And she knew something was very wrong with her. She knew she was not going fat. She would keep saying Maras in Gujarati that my sari petticoats are getting tight, and nowhere else on the body was she gaining weight. So she was an intelligent woman to know that something was going wrong. But really, I don't know whether we failed or who failed, but we didn't really hear. Somebody didn't really hear that something was really going wrong with her. So my biggest takeaway from this is, if you feel something is really going wrong with you, I mean, till you get to the bottom of it, don't give it up. And the other takeaway I had from her is that she had made some very brave decisions. She had made known to us exactly what she wanted. She did not want to be put on life support. She did not want to be resuscitated. She did not want a colostomy if it had to be done. She was extremely clear. So it made things very simple for us. It was hard, but it made things very simple for us as caregivers to know what we were doing was what she wanted. So I think it's very important. Sometimes I've seen with other scenarios where people don't tell the patient what they are going through, or they don't want them to know, or they don't want to listen to them saying that if I die, or when I die, or before I die. But I think these are very important conversations to have, Ina,
Yeah.
because it makes you feel better, it makes them feel better. And at the end of the day, I think you sleep easy knowing that you did what they
Yeah,
wanted.
it was wanted. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think that was my main takeaway from Mummy.
mommy. And then 2 years later, you find yourself parenting another parent. So,
Yeah, well, he was a little more difficult than her
oh my God.
because he was not so brave. He was a wonderful man, my dad. I mean, I really miss him because he passed only about 3.5 years ago. He started off with multiple myeloma, but he was a textbook case, which was just the opposite from her. She was diagnosed very late. He was diagnosed very early. But then he was given thalidomide that caused a lot of toxicity in his extremities. And he was a dentist. So it was very difficult. And then he couldn't feel under his feet. So they discontinued it and they gave him something else. And he kept on journeying with myeloma. And as he journeyed, my sister and I faced more and more challenges because his back got very badly compromised. And he would have severe chronic pain in the lower back. We just couldn't understand how bad that pain must have been. But he would say, "Oh my God, I can't bear this pain." And he was also fortunate that thanks to the Tata Hospital in Jamshedpur, he had more or less a continuous supply of fentanyl patches. And since he was a doctor in the same hospital, they looked after him very well. But our main caregiving journey with him, Ina, must have started around 2011, 12, when he started having a lot of behavioral changes.
Okay.
And we were very confused what was happening to him. We tried to relocate him to Delhi. He was grossly unhappy in my house, though we were doing everything for him. He was grateful. I won't say he was not grateful, but he wanted to go back home. So my sister and I took the difficult decision of taking him back to Jamshedpur, which was truly his home since 1959, 61. surrounded by his very loving brother's family and his nephew and also his family and lots of friends who were more than family to us in Jamshedpur. But then in 13, he was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. And that's a whole other game.
Oh, okay.
So it was, we had to really learn about this disease. And we were very, very fortunate to have an excellent psychiatrist, Dr. Agarwal, there in Jamshedpur, who stood by Daddy through this journey, besides his neurologist and everybody who really looked after him. But it was very hard, Ina, with him. It was as easy as it was with Mummy, so hard it was with Daddy, because he didn't know after a point what was happening in his mind. You see, there were bouts of agitation, and those were the hardest times for my sister and I, because we just didn't know how to calm him at that time, and we were distant caregivers.
Okay, okay.
Right, so we took the decision that I would go there 2 3 times, 3 4 times a year for about 10 days at a time, and my sister would come for her entire summer break for about 2 3 months, settle him, settle the house, do all the major stuff. But we were very fortunate to have wonderful domestic help, and she and her family, I mean, we are ever grateful to her for the care she took of our dad. But he would get so agitated to the point, or so frightened to the point, that he would lock himself up and then not let anybody in, or he would, so we had to remove all the stoppers. We had to make sure he doesn't fall. We had to make sure he doesn't wander out of the house. It was very hard with him, Ina.
Okay. And so that was basically what you're saying is for your father, it was more of remote caregiving.
Yes, if you call it remote, that I was there like every third month. I made a point to go
Okay.
there.
Ah,
So,
okay. No, then it is not really that remote. So,
well, we were very much on remote, I must say. My sister got him an iPad and she would FaceTime every day so she could see, whether
okay.
he'd been changed, whether he was being looked after, what were his surroundings. Luckily, he was very fond of classical music. And anytime he was extremely agitated, uh, my maid knew that she has to put on the video of Swan Lake. So once that came on, would get a little calm. And we had a lot of friends, like family, who would go and see him. Sometimes he would not want to see them. Sometimes he would say nasty things about them. Sometimes he'd be so happy to see them. It was a very difficult time with him. And then towards the end, I never knew anybody could pass with end stage dementia.
All right.
So we really, I mean, that was a very difficult journey. Had I known about pallium India at that time, had there been something like Caregiver Saathi for me, for us, where we could have people holding us, in their hands and sharing their experiences, giving us their warmth, their help, and their dedication, I think we would have been so much
Yeah, if
better
you
off.
had a kind of a network like Caregiver
Oh,
Saathi,
yes, for sure. For sure.
higher level.
Especially when you're not in a, like this, like in Bombay, Delhi, Madras, Calcutta, whatever, these are all tier one cities. There's a
Yes.
lot of kind of help available in those forms. But when you're far away, in a small location, I mean, there has plenty of benefits for being there. But I think, yeah, I feel Caregiver Saathi and Pallium India would have
Okay.
really held us
Yeah.
stronger.
So did this also the journey that you had with your father, I mean, both you and your sister have had similar experiences, when
Yes,
so how, coming to that, because I'm sure she also coped with there
a
were stressful
lot.
moments for her, and she coped because for her it was international travel. And then you said she was having her first child, expecting her first child, during your mother's sickness. Um, how has she coped up with this? How did it impact her the way it impacted you,
It did.
or it did? So
It
both
did.
of you have had that kind of, held on.
Yes, it was very hard because it had been a very long journey for us. And we never met for anything joyous, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that
Because
is.
most of the time we met because mommy needed to be looked after and then daddy needed to be looked after. And it was very rare that we met together because we made sure we went at separate times so that, he had more time with one of us somebody being there. Of course, I mean, I got married, I had my children. We did have those joyful times. But most of the time was spent in discussing how do we keep him comfortable, how do we keep him safe, how do we keep him happy. Yeah.
That's been almost since your mother's, when she was diagnosed, right, to your father's demise, which happened, I think, what you're saying is in 2015, 16? Is
17.
17. So it's been a very, very long journey for both of you. I think it's been a long period of,
It has.
yeah. So, from your mother's illness, sickness, you have one takeaway. And what is it that, what were the different lessons you kind of learned from your father's caregiving?
Um, my father, I would say a lot of gratitude is one thing that I came away with.
Mhm,
That we had such a huge support system with the medical fraternity in Jamshedpur,
mhm,
and also all our friends without whom, and our family there, without whom we could have never done this. My brother, who unfortunately passed to COVID on 30th September, he played a big role in helping us to look after my dad after my mother passed, he and his beautiful wife.
mhm. Oh, that.
And yeah, and my another takeaway from my dad was that
Mm,
once we got the diagnosis that it was Lewy body dementia, I
mhm,
think it became much easier for us to
mhm.
handle him, because
Okay.
earlier we were very confused and sometimes we would get angry with him. We would say, why are you being so mean? Why is he being so selfish?
Mhm,
Because we didn't understand that it was actually his mind that was playing those games with him. You see, his parts of his brain had been bombarded. He'd lost certain parts that controlled inhibition. He'd say
mhm,
things that he didn't, a man like him would never ever otherwise say. He was the gentlest soul that
mhm,
could live. So I think getting to know and then empowering yourself
mhm,
about the disease
mhm.
helps you to cope. The other thing we learned, I think the big takeaway that we both had with my dad was advocacy,
Okay.
because he was not able to advocate for himself after
Mhm,
a point. He just couldn't. You know,
mhm,
if we take him to the psychiatrist, he would
mhm.
sometimes say to the psychiatrist, "You need a doctor more than me."
Okay.
So, you know, they were very kind. They never took it amiss. But
Mhm,
uh, with daddy, we had to tell the doctors what's happening with him,
mhm,
you know, and so it was very important. There was also one time when a wrong dose of medication had been administered to him.
mhm,
So that is another thing I would tell all caregivers,
mhm,
especially if you're remote caregivers and you
mhm,
have somebody at home. Say in our case, it was a domestic help, and
mhm.
we trusted them with collecting the medicine from the hospital and and then administering it to him. But one day there was a mistake. So here again, I would say with a place like Caregiver Saathi, if you had somebody like that who was going in and looking over these things, because how many ever friends and family you have, they all have their own, they
Correct.
all have their own issues,
Own routines, yeah.
and how much ever they want to help you, they cannot be there 24/7.
Mhm,
So something like Caregiver Saathi at that point too, I feel, would
mhm,
have helped us. I mean, it would have been. So those are the takeaways I have with dad. And again, with dad, he did not want to have a bad end. He did not want to be put onto machines. And we respected those wishes, and we held his hand and he passed away. Both of them passed away holding our hand. So I
oh,
think that is, we have no regrets for it on that. Though I must say that between both of them, as I shared with you, I also shared the journey of my mother-in-law,
mhm,
was diagnosed with stage 1A colorectal cancer in 2005. And at the same time, my father had a hip replacement, so my sister came to look after him, and we looked after her. And it's a real story of hope, which I want to share. She was an early diagnosis. She did very well. We had these beautiful surgeon hands in Delhi at Apollo Hospital, Dr. VP Singh and Dr. Rukaya Mir. I'm forever grateful to them. They got everything out. They told us, do not put her through chemotherapy. If you go to a physician onco, he is going to tell you to give her that. But I promise you, I have it out. And we, of course, did go to the physicians who said, give it to her. But we decided to go with our surgeons, and my mama is fine.
Oh, that is so good to hear.
Yeah, yeah, it's wonderful. It's 15 years, touch,
Oh,
knock on wood.
yeah.
And she prays every day, and she's become a YouTuber now. She's
Oh,
watching, yeah, what doing cookery, things. And so this is a story of hope.
yeah. So,
And yeah, and our caregiving with her was also, it was fairly easy.
okay, okay, okay. So,
Yeah. And then we had tragically a big loss in our family. Her daughter, my husband's sister, in
mm-hmm.
2009 had a sudden pontine hemorrhage.
All right.
And yeah, and it was very sad. She fell asleep and she never woke up for 60 days, and then she passed. And with her, it was a struggle, Lena, because she was put into hospital. And the doctor said that she's not going to make it. And even if she makes it, she will always be like a vegetable. There was no chance of her having a recovery. I think that was a very, very, probably one of the most difficult times of our life. And the more difficult part was that the hospital where we were was not willing to let us take her home.
Mm-hmm.
And as a caregiver to, not her primary caregiver was her husband, but of course we were looking up, we were also very much part of it. Plus
All in the,
she
yeah.
had small children, and it was very hard. And I wish to say that thanks to these wonderful platforms
Mm-hmm.
and also Pallium India, where they had a talk with a doctor who said that it is not legal for a hospital to not allow you to take your dear one home. So if there's anyone out there facing any such similar situation, please know that there are people you can approach.
Yeah.
And this is can be very, very hard when it's somebody young. And in her case, it was very difficult being a caregiver, very difficult, because she couldn't communicate with us at
Correct.
all. We didn't know whether she could hear us, whether she could see us. And it was very hard. And her daughter was 9, her son was 15, and she passed. And it was very, very hard. It was very hard.
So, as patients and as caregivers, what I understand is that it is also very important to know the legal rights of the patient
That's
uh,
right.
vis-a-vis the people who are healthcare
It's
professionals.
very important, I think. I don't think any of us know it. I
Uh,
don't think it's out there in bold print.
mhm.
And I think there are thousands like us who need this information.
Yes,
And you are so harassed and upset at that time.
yes,
You're also chasing insurance, which is another big thing,
yeah, yes.
right? And it's
Mm,
tough. It's tough because we pay hefty premiums. And
mhm,
after 3 cycles of chemotherapy, that insurance is over.
mm.
And then everybody's not got the means. Of course, we are very blessed compared to many, but it's
Yeah.
been hard. And then my sister-in-law's husband got diagnosed with lymphoma.
Mhm.
So it's been like,
Been a
it's been,
complete roller coaster for you.
yeah, yeah. And Ina, sometimes I question myself, did we do the right thing, did we not do the right thing? But I think it's been a while, and after my dad has passed, and it's taken me some time to come to peace that I think we did all we could for each of them. And I think that's what every caregiver really does. I mean, I'm sure you did it for your dad. Whatever you thought best, why would we do anything otherwise?
Other than that, yes,
And
yes.
there are sometimes, of course, I didn't face it, but I know several caregivers who face, family pressures, friend pressures. Of course, even at the time when my dad was really bad and he pulled out the Ryle's tube 13 times. And, we said, please, we will feed him whatever he can
Mm,
take. There were some people who said, do you want to starve him? Do you want to kill him?
mm,
No, he wouldn't have wanted to live like that.
mm.
He would not have. I mean, I think that's the dignity we give our loved one.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, he didn't want, I'm sure he didn't. I mean, everybody, it was so nice that everyone came to see him. But I used to sometimes think, I hope, I hope that we don't remember him like this, and we remember him for the person he actually was,
Correct, correct, correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's been more or less my
Uh,
caregiving journey. And of course, I have to say the time when I think I also needed a lot of care, a lot. of care and love was when I delivered my second child. And when I had been for an ultrasound before she was born, my gynecologist said that there was something wrong with her. And she couldn't tell what it was. She said her femur was disproportionate to the head circumference. And she said, "You'll have to wait it out. When she's born, we'll get to know." And I didn't have a mother. My father was in disbelief. My sister was away. And my older child was 1 3/4. She was a real darling. She got a lot of, sometimes the end of my stick, poor thing. But my husband was working abroad at that time. And it was very difficult my dad kept saying, "Go for another ultrasound. That machine must be bad. That must be bad." So we went through all of that. Luckily, my brother and sister-in-law in Jamshedpur were there with me throughout. And then she was born, a beautiful little baby, but there was something really wrong with her because she would sleep a lot. She wasn't a very active child, and they could just not diagnose her for some reason. That was a very difficult time, and it was 2000. There was not much internet and things like that available, or maybe I was not so savvy with it. I'm not sure. But I have some very, very dear friends, my band of sisters, as I say, my worldwide band of sisters. And they all helped me. My sister helped me. My cousin sister, who was like a sister, helped me. But I was just desperately looking for somebody who had also been through that journey, who had got a child who was not okay, and then who was eventually diagnosed with congenital hypothyroidism. I didn't even know there was anything like that, and I didn't know that hospitals should be routinely checking and screening children for that. So that was a very, very difficult journey for me with my child. But God bless my Bachu auntie, my doctor auntie, who diagnosed her. And she kept on telling me that she will be fine. She will be fine. But it's very hard for a young mother to accept that and to believe that.
Yes, yes, yeah, I fully.
And I think that I needed a lot of care at that time, a lot. So again, I think, these forums that we are now trying to
Having,
bring are really beautiful, because there are people, I mean, this was not a chronic illness or anything. Sometimes you just need to be cared for because you're caring about a situation that you really can't handle. And with God's grace, she's fine. She's beautiful. She's wise. She's a lovely girl. And she's in college now. So I'm very grateful. Again, it's a story of hope.
yes, you have. So you have stories of hope, you have so many stories about love. But I think what is your personality is that you are meant to, one is to be, to care for people, your family around you, and also to be cared for. And I'm sure right now there are, your loved ones who value you
My family is wonderful.
and they care for you.
They do.
And it's so great to have you on this forum and being a part of Caregiver Saathi. I think what you have to offer is so many insights because you've had such a each caregiving journey has been a different experience altogether, and the takeaways have been different. We've talked about insurance issues, about legal advice and legal counsel, access to legal counsel, which should be there, the importance of early diagnosis,
Yes.
and also mental health advocacy, especially amongst,
Tremendous. Tremendous.
yeah. So,
I think that's very, very important,
yeah.
because as people are journeying, the patient is looked after, but the person who's looking after the patient has just, I mean, I've been singularly fortunate, Ina, to have such supportive family and friends. I mean, there were months and months that, we were away from our homes, my sister and I, her husband, her son, my husband, my children, everybody, our extended family, our entire Jamshedpur family, I should say. I mean, we are forever grateful. We are forever grateful. But I think it's really very important for a caregiver to understand and accept whatever help is being offered to them. This is another thing that I find, that many people hesitate to ask for help And even if they hesitate to ask for help, they even hesitate to accept help.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
that is there.
I mean, my sister and I were very open to accepting help, and people were so kind and forthcoming. If they accept, they said, we'll send you a hot meal, we jumped at it. If they said, we'll send you a driver, we said, we'll get this for you, we'll get that for you, we'll order this for you, we'll sit with you while you can go for a walk. We'll sit with your parent while you can go for a walk or something. I mean, these were things that I really feel, please, all caregivers out there should not shy away from accepting that help, because tomorrow you will help somebody else. You may not help the same person, but it makes your journey so much lighter.
Yes. And it's important for your emotional well-being also.
Extremely, extremely. I mean, my sister was very, even when dad was in the hospital, she would go and walk around in the hospital, but she would make sure she got her walk, and then she would push me out too. And we really tried not to exhaust ourselves at the same time. So I
And
think
take
that's,
mini breaks,
take breaks, and one of us is there, the other needn't be there. So
Mhm.
I think these are very important things,
Yeah.
and even as people's parents grow old in the natural progression, things are going to be difficult. Like
Yeah.
now I have also my in-laws with me,
Mhm.
and age brings with it its own
Issues.
issues.
Yeah.
And however hard they may try, it becomes very difficult for them in our fast-paced life. So I think at some moments we have to pause, we have to sit with them. We have to make that time to talk to them, because you don't know when they are not going to be there. You never get that chance again.
I,
So I do believe that, we should pay attention to our elders, not take anyone for granted, and, look after them, but also look after yourself.
yes. That is the only mantra, self-care while you care for the one who
Yes,
needs care.
that's right. That's right. Ina, it's so nice knowing you. And I
Yeah,
know you've had a difficult time too.
yeah, 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 yeah. So
And it's never easy to lose a parent.
no, it is not.
And to lose the second one is even worse. But
Yes.
I think that sometimes when I think like that, I
Mm.
look back at, other people who have lost so much earlier in life.
Mm.
And I think, how lucky am I that I was 27, 28 when my mother passed, and I was over 50 when my father passed. So I think we all also have to take away, by looking at what others go through,
Yeah.
and just fill ourselves with gratitude.
That is so important.
Right.
Zaved, thank you so much. It has been such a wonderful session, speaking with you, connecting with you, and understanding your experience.
Thank
Uh,
you, Ina. I hope that the caregivers that get some takeaway from what I've spoken.
oh, yes, there are plenty of takeaways.
And big hugs to all of them and the whole Caregiver Saathi family.
Yeah, they are doing really a great job. They're really doing, their effort. Bhavna and Nabia, the team is really, really motivated,
Right.
and it's
This
really
message has to spread far and wide.
message has to spread. So, all right.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
You take care.
You too.
Yeah,
God bless. Bye
yeah.
bye.